the senior writer from Sports Illustrated, in front of the old SI step and repeat. Good to see you, Christopher. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Rich. How you doing?
What the hell happened at the end of that regulation last night, Chris?
I thought Indiana played great for about 30 or 47 minutes. They were down 12 zip. They came back. They were down 13 points in the third quarter. They came back. They pulled away with a 5-point lead in the fourth. And, in that final minute, they had multiple chances to ice the game away. And then Halliburton committed a turnover. There's a turnover on the inbounds pass. And then, Jaylen Brown makes, one of the best shots you'll ever see Jaylen Brown make to send that game into overtime. So if you're Indiana, I don't know what you're thinking of this game afterwards. I mean, the positives are that you clawed your way back from double-digit deficits multiple times in this game. The negatives are, man, you were right there. You had this game in hand with about 10 seconds to play, and you blew it. You blew the end of that game and cost yourself game one.
And, of course, drawing blood on the road, knowing that it's possible Porzingis is going to come back for the return trip that you're hoping to get to Boston, or potentially even before then. That's the tough part, too, right? Like, you getting one now would be so huge. I mean, beyond huge. Hanging the sort of what would you say, moral victory banner right now. I don't know what that's going to do.
And this was the game, Rich, that I think Indiana had its best chance to win on the road. I mean, the Celtics have been off for 5 days. They've had a relatively easy path through the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, whereas Indiana went 6 with Milwaukee, just had a 7-game series with New York. And look, that'll fatigue them over time. But going into this game one, they were probably the sharper team in that moment. And, they just blew it. I mean, I give Brown a lot of credit for that shot. Jrue Holiday had a fantastic game overall for the Celtics, forced one of those turnovers late in the game. And look, Jason Tatum, the knives, I think, were going to be out, Rich, for Jason Tatum if they had lost that game in regulation. He was 2 for 10 in the fourth quarter in the first 3 minutes of overtime before, closing the game like a superstar is supposed to do. Had that and one going into TJ McConnell, had that 3-pointer at the top of the key that effectively iced it. I've never really understood a lot of the criticism that's been leveled at Jason Tatum, over these last couple of months, but 36 points on this game, 12 rebounds, a plus 20 overall, and those final 6 points in the last minute 12 of regulation. That's exactly how you want a superstar to play.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about moral victories for the Pacers and how, empty those calories are, Chris Mannix, how empty are the calories about style points with the Celtics, right? Like, they're a 60-win team. The field has been cleared of the defending champs now out west. The field was cleared of Giannis in the East. Embiid got cleared by a Knicks team that then got cleared by the Pacers. So what about that conversation about the Celtics not doing it as emphatically as you would hope for them, Chris?
I mean, my response to that would be like, what do you want them to do? Like, they beat Miami in 5 games. They beat Cleveland in 5 games. Like, the best Celtics team, Rich, of this generation was probably that 07-08 team that, won a championship in Garnett and Ray Allen's first year in Boston. You go back to that postseason, and that team went, 7 games, I think, with Atlanta in the first round, 7 games with Milwaukee in the second round. They were in some dogfights there. I mean, the Celtics get beat up because they have a couple of duds in first-round matchups with Miami and Cleveland, and then, wipe the floor with those teams. Look, they struggled in this game against Indiana. They were sloppier than I think they know they need to be moving on in this series, but they still won. And again, I maintain, and we can talk about this a week from now, a week and a half from now, that this was the game Indiana needed to get. I think Boston's going to be a lot stronger going into game 2 and putting themselves in a position to win this series the exact same way they won the last round in 5 games.
Chris Mannix here on the Rich Eisen Show from Sports Illustrated. What are you hearing about Kristaps Porzingis' health?
He's definitely out for these first 2 games. And, look, I've seen some of the reporting that game 4 was a possibility. I think the Celtics, from what I understand, are going to allow kind of the series in a way to dictate when Porzingis comes back. Look, if they're down 2-1 going into game 4, I think that timeline that's been sort of publicly established, that may hold true to form. But if they're up 2-1 or up 3-zip going into game 4, you're not going to see Porzingis back in that game. These injuries, Rich, are just far too risky to take any kind of chance with Porzingis. Now, not all calf injuries are created equal, but we all remember what happened in 2019 when Kevin Durant came back from that calf injury in the NBA Finals, wound up tearing his Achilles. Like the Celtics, in the back of their minds, I'm sure they're thinking, look, we bring him back too quickly. Not only might we lose him for the rest of this season, we could lose him for the rest of next season too, when this team's championship window is still open. So with this particular type of injury, just like we saw it with Giannis Antetokounmpo, just like we saw it kind of with Damian Lillard, and just like we saw it to a certain degree with Mike Conley, teams are going to be cautious when it comes to this type of injury.
Let's give the Pacers a little bit of flowers as they appear to be now completely consumed over the last two series.
Oh, we must not be on
ESPN. Well, I mean, because again, it does appear, Chris, that they have been consumed by the Amtrak card or media bias, if you will, over the last few weeks. What makes them so dangerous, do you think?
Pace of play, that's where it starts. And Halliburton is legit. I mean, Halliburton, he was fantastic at times, during that game last night. He had the three-pointer at the end of the second quarter that tied the game. Then he had the off-balance three-pointer at the end of the third quarter that cut the lead down to 1. He just makes, unorthodox shots. That step back that he makes is really a ridiculous shot where he just kind of leaps back beyond the three-point line and lofts up this high arcing three that seems to go in more often than it doesn't. And look, he's a great free throw shooter. We saw, towards the end of that overtime, made 3 free throws to put Indiana up ahead. He's a great distributor for that team. Does a great job finding his teammates. And look, they've just got a whole bunch of weapons there. I mean, I think Siakam, as we saw last night, has been a big addition for them. The Celtics had no answer for Miles Turner. Like, one of the arguments to bring Porzingis back as quickly as possible is so you don't have to see Luke Cornett playing, significant minutes in this series, because, Miles Turner was just a force. And then, the Pacers have the advantage with that bench. They had 30 points off their bench last night. The Celtics had about 13. TJ McConnell is just a nightmare once again for opposing guards defensively. So they're a legit team. They're a complete team. The question is, can they put it together enough to beat a team that's on the level of Boston? So
now that we gave the flowers to the Pacers, let's be thoroughly disrespectful and say, if the Celtics advance, who would be the better matchup for them? Is it Dallas?
Yeah, it's probably Dallas. Dallas has got some decent wing defenders, especially in the aftermath of that PJ Washington trade. But, the 2 games the Celtics played against Minnesota were absolute dogfights. I mean, they were just tough matchups against the Timberwolves. And the Timberwolves have that kind of wing defense that can give those Celtics wings a lot of problems. When you have, Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, I mean, those are guys that don't need a lot of help when you put them on Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And those 2 guys are the engine that drives the Celtics. Whereas the Celtics, if you go up against Dallas, yeah, Luka and Kyrie are tough. No question about it. But just like against Indiana, you've got kind of the horses there to match up one-on-one with Jrue Holiday, Derek White, 2 all-NBA defensive team players just named this week. Jaylen Brown is a very good defender as well. So I like the matchup with Dallas. And look, as someone that loves web traffic, the idea of Kyrie Irving coming back to Boston is just mouthwatering. Just bring Kyrie back to Boston, bring that storyline back to life, bring all the tales back of that 2019 season that went so awry. I mean, I understand the purists out there want to have a good Anthony Edwards versus Jason Tatum breakdown. I'm all about that at some point. But, bring Kyrie back into the TD Garden, where he is, probably the biggest villain they've seen there in a generation. Like, he is, villain number 1 among Celtics fans. That would be a really electric series. A pregame 1 smudging, would that happen, do you think? Inside where he would stroll around and smudge the place again? Remember that one, Chris? Well, we saw that. We also saw him sage the place during the pandemic. Okay. That was... he also kind of stepped on Lucky, when he was playing for the Nets there at center court. So, Kyrie's brought some of this on himself, and he knows that. But I would just love to see it. And look, I am more than impressed with what Kyrie has done during his time in Dallas. Like, he has to own everything that happened at the end of his time in Cleveland, at the end of his time in Boston, at the end of his time in Brooklyn. He has to own that. He kind of walked away from 3 championship level teams and kind of blew them up in the process. He's gone to Dallas. And when you talk to Mavericks coaches down there, they say he's been nothing but professional in the locker room. You saw, after the last series, Luka Doncic, he loves playing with Kyrie Irving, loves being alongside him. And, you watch some of these postseason games, Rich, and Kyrie's never going to be a great defender, but he's trying out there. Like, he is giving his best on the defensive end. And when he's playing like that and all the other stuff is not part of the conversation, he is still an elite NBA player.
Few minutes left with Chris Mannix of Sports Illustrated. So 26 association franchises have gone fishing, to use the phrase. Who's the franchise to watch a player to move that all the other franchises out there that think they can make a big ad? Who are we looking at right now? Is it Booker? Is it Jimmy Butler? Is it somebody else? Who is it right now?
I don't think Miami's going to trade Jimmy Butler because it's not really in Miami's DNA to tear things down and do a complete rebuild. Like, they're one of the rare teams that is happy to be kind of the 8 seed, the 9 seed while they try to build themselves back up. Most teams tear it all the way down. Miami just doesn't do that. So I don't get any sense that Jimmy Butler is going to be on the move this offseason. The team that most GMs that I talk to are watching is the Atlanta Hawks, because the Hawks, they now have the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Mm-hmm. They've got some other draft capital that they can use. And they've got 2 players in Trae Young and DeJounte Murray that are going to generate a lot of interest around the league. Trae Young is, popular amongst every team that needs shooting, which is, basically every team. The Lakers at the forefront of that. DeJounte Murray, a better 2-way player than Trae Young, and on a good contract as well. So that's the team that I think has the best chance of distributing some of its top-tier talent across the league.
Okay. Before I let you go, I'm going to go here. We always do this. Jake Paul, Mike Tyson have now stared down each other. That's now happened. We've gone. Oh, they did. They laughed a little bit too, but there we go. There's
giggled.
Can't deny this photograph. There they are, standing toe to toe. Now what? Now what do we got? We're close. We're getting closer. Any thoughts, Chris Mannix?
I was there. I was there in New York, Rich. Yes. I just 2 nights ago filed a magazine story on kind of Mike Tyson 2.0, the sort of reinvention of Mike Tyson. I'm coming around to the opinion that this event is going to be kind of goofy. Like, this fight is not going to be the rock'em sock'em robot kind of fight that people are hoping for. First of all, Mike clearly likes Jake. He said some weird things during this press tour, but he clearly likes Jake Paul and respects kind of what he's doing out there in the sport. And, watching Jake Paul try to drag Mike Tyson into one of those Tyson Lennox Lewis press conferences was comical. He's saying, I'm going to knock Mike out. Mike just kind of giggles at him and sort of, points at him. And I just look at the picture you're throwing up there. Mike is wearing a Las Vegas law firm t-shirt. He is using this platform to promote all his brands. He sat down at the New York press conference and promoted his energy pouch that he's got a stake in. He's got a cannabis company out there. He's promoting a law firm. He's got a podcast. I was talking to some people that know Mike, including Shelly Finkel, his former manager. And look, they just think he's just a really smart guy that knows a good business opportunity when he gets it. So when we get to fight week, Rich, we're going to see, every product that Mike Tyson could possibly be hawking on display in Arlington, Texas. And when they get in the ring, if you're expecting anything more than kind of them clinching each other for 8 2-minute rounds, I think you're going to be disappointed.
All right. So do you want to comment on the other Tyson, for lack of a better phrase, Fury? Your 2 cents on what's going on with him?
Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah, I just got back from Saudi Arabia 2 nights ago. I was over there calling that fight for DAZN. That was electric, man. That was awesome to watch. I mean, that was when you hear people say, that was like a heavyweight fight. That's exactly what they're talking about. That was as back and forth as you can get. First 2 rounds, I thought Usyk was doing some good things in control. The next 5 were dominated by Tyson Fury. And then that 9th round comes along, and not since the days of Mike Tyson, Trevor Berbick, have I seen a fighter kind of stagger around the ring in the way that Tyson Fury did after absorbing shot after shot from Oleksandr Usyk. He was lucky, Rich, that the referee didn't stop that fight in that moment. But he survived the round, had some good, a couple of good moments later on in the fight, and winds up losing a split decision. That was one of the best heavyweight fights that I've ever seen. And given that they have a rematch clause, which is supposed to happen sometime in October, I think if they do it again, we're probably going to get the exact same type of event.
What's going on with the IBF belt? What's happening here, Chris?
Well, that's good. I mean, it won't be for undisputed the next time.
Right.
When you're a champion, you have mandatory challengers, and the IBF belt that Usyk has had for a long time, he hasn't defended it against a mandatory challenger. That guy's named Filip Hrgović, a former Olympian. So the IBF sometime this week or early next week is going to strip Usyk of that belt and sanction a fight between Filip Hrgović and Daniel Dubois for the IBF title. So it really doesn't matter all that much. I mean, these two guys are the best heavyweights in the world. But this fight this past Saturday was for the undisputed heavyweight championship. The next time they fight, it will be for the unified heavyweight championship.
So you went from Saudi Arabia to the TD Garden, Chris? Is that what?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Ambien is my friend.
Were you the only?
Ambien is my friend.
Were you the only one in TD Garden that said I was in Saudi Arabia 2 nights ago?
I think so.
Okay.
I did not happen to catch my DAZN colleagues making the trip with me.
Okay.
So, but I have to go back next Thursday. We're back for the Deontay Wilder fight in Riyadh. So that Boston to London to Riyadh leg. It was funny. Like I flew from Qatar to New York on this way back. And the very nice woman at the flight attendant at Qatar Airlines was like, "Oh, can we get you this food? Can we get you this at this time?" I said, "Listen, I'm going to take this red pill right now, and I'm going to go down. And if you see me like rolled over, do not wake me up for anything. Unless the plane is going down, do not wake me up. I need to get as much of the sleep as I can get."
I'd still want to stay asleep if the plane was going.
Yeah, right.
Probably. Then in that case, don't wake me up for anything.
Mannix going Matrix. There we go.
Guy Fieri wasn't in Saudi Arabia.
I guess
Mannix?
not.
No?
I guess not.
No, Guy
You
Fieri.
didn't see him there either.
No.
Guy Fieri, like huge, like I love the Boston celebrity row, right? It's like Guy Fieri, David Ortiz, and like 3 Wahlbergs. It's phenomenal the way Boston celebrity
Drake
row
May
works.
was there last night.
Okay.
Drake May looks like he's 11 years old, man. I wouldn't have recognized Drake May. Drake May looked like one of my cousins.
Look at him.
There he is right there. Drake May looked like, he could have been one of my cousins from Dorchester, just hanging out and getting good tickets to a Celtic game.
Exactly. He looks like one of those guys that's in one of those Boston, Guy Ritchie Boston type ideas.
The Town 2?
Yeah, the Town 2. Like, he's going to eat it by making the wrong decision. You know what I mean?
The Wahlberg brother, Pat, who has the restaurant. That's
Look
his
at
son.
him. I didn't see this photo.
Yeah.
Hey, man, great stuff.
He looks like, you could do the Town 2, and he could be like Jeremy Renner's brother.
That's right.
That is pissed off at Ben Affleck and is coming down to Florida to get him.
And he's going to make a bad move and eat it by like the 3rd act of the movie. You just know it.
No doubt.
Chris, thanks for the time, brother. We'll chat with you soon. Appreciate it.
You got it, Rich.
Chris Mannix, as always, making us smarter and a lot of fun right there. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.